What if the most powerful move you can make is not to move at all? What if staying home, doing nothing that looks impressive from the outside, is actually the most strategic act of control? It sounds strange, doesn't it? But if you ask Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who wrote The Prince, the mind that shaped how rulers and thinkers approach power, he might say, "The wise do not chase chaos. They master their surroundings. And sometimes that means mastering the one place you truly own, your home." Imagine this. The world outside is noisy, unpredictable, full of distractions, temptations, and threats. Everyone is rushing, competing, comparing. Yet, in all this noise, the real strategist, the one who rises above the rest, isn't the one running endlessly in circles. It's the one who retreats with purpose. The one who plans, studies, and strengthens in silence. That is what Machiavelli would call the act of a ruler. Using calm when others panic. Using stillness when others scatter. In this video, we're diving into a different kind of power. The kind that comes not from chasing life, but from commanding it. You'll learn why staying home might be one of the most Machiavellian decisions you can make today. We'll look at how isolation, often seen as weakness, can become your hidden weapon. We'll explore how Machiavelli's teachings on control, necessity, and advantage reveal that the smartest move is often invisible. Because in a world obsessed with constant motion, stillness becomes rebellion. And rebellion, as history shows, is where transformation begins. Most people know Machiavelli for manipulation, strategy, or even deceit. But the truth is deeper. Few realize that behind his ruthless reputation was a thinker who believed in preparation, patience, and self-control. When he was exiled from Florence, stripped of power, and forced to live on his small estate, people thought his life was over. But in that quiet isolation, he wrote The Prince, the book that would shape political thought for centuries. Alone, in his home, he built immortality. So when we talk about staying home, we're not talking about hiding. We're talking about transformation. Think about that for a second. Machiavelli didn't see retreat as defeat. He saw it as repositioning. When he could no longer control the outside world, he turned inward and mastered what he could. His time, his thoughts, his craft. And that's where the power lies. Because the truth is, staying home isn't laziness. It's leverage. It's where you turn weakness into strategy, where you plan the next move the world won't see coming. So in this video, we'll uncover how Machiavelli's exile teaches us the psychology of control. We'll explore why isolation can sharpen your mind, how quietness can become your fortress, and why the smartest minds in history, from thinkers to conquerors, always had periods of silence before greatness. We'll talk about the psychology behind control, how the environment shapes behavior, and how using your space wisely can give you the same kind of inner power that Machiavelli once used to influence kings. And as you watch, you'll start to see a pattern. The strongest are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who can wait. The ones who can use time and space like tools. The ones who don't need the world's noise to feel powerful. And by the end of this video, you'll see that staying home isn't about safety. It's about strategy. It's about learning to rule your own kingdom before you try to conquer another. So stay with me till the end. Because what you'll learn here might change how you see your space, your time, and your potential. If Machiavelli could rise from exile to eternal influence, imagine what you could do with just a few moments of peace and focus in your own world. Welcome to Psych Algorithm, where ancient minds meet modern psychology, and where philosophy becomes power. If you're ready to understand how to turn stillness into strength and thought into strategy, make sure you subscribe right. Let's begin. Before we talk about the power of staying home, we need to understand the mind behind this idea. Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who studied rulers, power, and human nature with a precision the surgeon. To Machiavelli, the world was never a place of fairness. It was a place of constant motion, unpredictability, and danger. He believed that survival and success belonged not to the strongest or kindest, but to the most controlled. And for him, control began with one simple rule: focus only on what you can command. Everything else is noise. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't describing a world of peace or certainty. He was warning leaders about chaos, the kind of chaos that comes from trying to manage what lies beyond your reach. He observed that fortune, what he called fortuna, is unpredictable. It shifts like the wind. You cannot stop it, but you can prepare for it. You can build structures that resist it. You can build stability inside uncertainty, and that's where the idea of necessity and control takes shape. For Machiavelli, necessity is not weakness, it's clarity. When life limits your options, when circumstances trap you in a corner, that's when true strategy begins. Because when you can't do that, you finally see what matters most. That's how the wise think. They don't waste energy on forces they can't move. They double down on what they can command: their mind, their focus, their time. That's the essence of Machiavellian control. Now look around at our modern world. It's full of distractions, expectations, and pressure to always be doing something. Everyone's chasing opportunity, chasing movement, chasing validation. But Machiavelli would see this differently. He'd see people giving away their control, scattering their focus into 100 directions they can't manage. He'd say, "You're not ruling your life, you're being ruled by it." And this is where staying home becomes a powerful move. Because when you stay home, you reclaim your dominion. Home isn't just a place to rest. It's your private territory, your fortress. It's the one environment you can shape entirely. According to your will, you decide the rhythm, the order, the priorities. No outside interference, no noise you didn't choose. Machiavelli would call that an ideal principality, a domain ruled by intelligence, not accident. The walls of your home become the borders of your control. Within them you hold complete power. Think about it. The outside world runs on uncertainty, traffic, opinions, social hierarchies, the randomness of human behavior. You can't control any of that. But inside your space you can design your routine, manage your energy, direct your attention. Every object, every moment, every decision within that space becomes an act of strategy. And in that stillness, you begin to see clearly. You stop reacting and start ruling. Machiavelli's concept of control wasn't about dominating others. It was about mastering the self first. Because a ruler who cannot control himself cannot control anything else. Staying home, then, becomes more comfort. It becomes discipline, a way of reducing the world to what you can truly influence. It's the purest form of Machiavellian logic. When the world turns unpredictable, turn inward and build power where no one can take it from you. When we talk about power, most people think of politics, money, or control over others. But true power, the kind Machiavelli respected, begins inside the mind and body. A ruler cannot command an empire if he cannot command himself, and that begins with stability, physical, emotional, and psychological. Staying home, in this sense, becomes more than a lifestyle choice. It becomes a method of strengthening your base. Modern science confirms what Machiavelli would have intuitively known. Stillness, when used properly, restores your power. Studies in psychological science show that reduced external demands like fewer commutes, fewer deadlines, fewer forced social interactions lead to lower stress levels, deeper sleep, and better mood regulation. The body relaxes when it doesn't have to constantly adapt to unpredictable environments. The mind settles when it isn't pulled in 10 directions at once. When you stay home, you remove the friction points that exhaust most people without them even realizing it. The traffic that drains your patience, the noise that scatters your thoughts, the subtle social games that consume energy. You eliminate them all. And what you gain in exchange is calm. Calm is not laziness. Calm is control. It is the foundation upon which every powerful mind builds clarity. Machiavelli would have called this prudence, the art of avoiding unnecessary risks. He believed the wise person looks ahead, foresees the dangers, and chooses the safest, most strategic path. Reducing risk is not cowardice, it is foresight. Staying home, therefore, is not retreat. It is defense. It is the deliberate choice to preserve your resources, your health, your focus, your energy, so that when you act, your actions have weight. Psychologists now understand that the absence of constant movement allows the brain to recover from overstimulation. Sleep quality improves because the nervous system isn't on high alert. Creativity grows in quiet spaces where the mind can wander freely. In the quiet of home, your thoughts are no longer reacting to noise. They begin to organize themselves, and this, Machiavelli would say, is the first step of mastery. The ability to think clearly, detached from chaos. Because when everyone else is busy running, the one who pauses sees what others miss. But calm alone isn't enough. The other gift of staying home is focus. A study published in PLOS One revealed that people who work remotely or spend long hours in controlled environments experience a noticeable increase in deep work, the kind of sustained concentration needed for complex or creative tasks. At home, you can create conditions that favor thought over reaction. You can decide when to engage, when to pause, when to push. You can eliminate unnecessary noise, structure your surroundings to suit your rhythm, and build a space designed for productivity rather than distraction. Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. In his letters written from exile, he described his daily routine. During the day, he handled small affairs. At night, he dressed in formal robes, entered his seers, and conversed with the ancients through books. In isolation, he produced one of the most influential works in history. He didn't curse his limitations. He used them. He seized the moment. That's the Machiavellian approach. Use your situation, however limited it seems, and turn it into advantage. Your home, then, is your principality. You are its ruler. Within those walls you decide the law, how you spend your time, what habits you cultivate, what distractions you allow in. The lull outside is ruled by chance, by fortuna. Inside, you are the architect. Each day you shape your schedule. You are ruling your domain. Each decision to work, to rest, to learn, becomes a law you set for yourself. And as Machiavelli said, a ruler who governs himself with order and discipline earns respect, not through fear, but through consistency. Now think about what happens when you constantly move through the outside world. Every crowd, every conversation, every social game exposes you to variables you can't control. The more you move through these layers, the more you dilute your focus. Machiavelli wrote that men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. What he meant was this: the more distracted people are, the easier they are to manipulate. And what is modern life, if not one vast theater of distraction? Every scroll, every notification, every expectation is a subtle form of deception, pulling you away from your center. So staying home becomes a strategic withdrawal. It's not isolation, it's fortification. It's how you gather strength while others scatter theirs. When you limit exposure to unnecessary risk, you preserve your mind from the noise that breeds confusion. When you reduce social dependency, you reclaim independence of thought. You are no longer being pulled into other people's stories. You are writing your own. This is how a Machiavellian thinker survives. In a world designed to consume attention by learning when to step back and when to strike. There's a difference between fear and strategy. Fear makes you hide. Strategy makes you wait. Machiavelli would never encourage hiding. He would encourage positioning. A general doesn't run from battle. He chooses the terrain. Staying home allows you to choose your terrain. You decide when to interact, when to act, when to rest. You're not at the mercy of others' plans. You're setting your own. The advantage of withdrawal is that it's invisible. No one sees you preparing. No one sees you becoming stronger. They see silence. But that silence hides precision. And within that silence, something more powerful begins. The building of the inner domain. Machiavelli once warned that rulers who neglect their fortresses lose their power the moment fortune shifts. But the wise ruler builds strength where he sits. He fortifies from within. Your home, in that sense, is not just comfort. It's your fortress. It's where you can build the foundation of long-term influence. Every habit you cultivate, every piece of knowledge you gain, every routine you enforce, is a brick in the walls of your inner state. This is not a passive act. Staying home is not about waiting for life to happen. It's about designing it deliberately. It's where you learn to focus deeply without interruption. It's where you plan your next moves with clarity. It's where you strengthen the muscles that the world rarely sees. Discipline, patience, reflection. These are not glamorous qualities, but they are the essence of power, because those who can endure quiet preparation are the ones who dominate when the noise returns. Machiavelli would look at modern solitude and see opportunity. He'd see a place to sharpen intellect, to train emotional control, to observe without being observed. He'd advise you to treat every day at home as a lesson in rulership. Wake with order, act with intent, use time as a tool. The more control you exercise over your environment, the more capable you become of handling external chaos later. That's the paradox. The more you withdraw, the more prepared you are to engage. Inside your walls, there are no crowds to impress, no judgments to obey, no random shifts in fortune to fear. It's just you, your will, and your discipline. That's where mastery begins. Machiavelli's exiled years were not his downfall. They were his training ground. He turned isolation into authorship, stillness into strategy. He transformed powerlessness into creation, and that's the lesson that echoes through time. Your greatest moves are often made in silence. Home, then, becomes a mirror of the mind. If it's chaotic, your thoughts will be scattered. If it's ordered, your thoughts will sharpen. Machiavelli's ruler keeps his city clean, his soldiers trained, his treasury managed. You must do the same. Organize your space, sin in your habits, maintain your energy, because from that order, all strength grows. When the world is uncertain, control what's near. When life feels unstable, build something stable where you are. In the end, staying home becomes not a pause in progress, but the preparation for it. It's where you practice being ruler of something, even if that something is small. It's where you learn the precision of control, the calm of focus, the prudence of restraint. The outside world will always be full of forces you can't manage. But inside your walls you can create your own order, and that is the most Machiavellian power of all. There's a hidden layer to the idea of staying home, one that reaches beyond personal peace and individual power. When enough people choose to withdraw from the chaos, something profound happens. The whole rhythm of society begins to change. We saw a glimpse of this during global lockdowns and stay-at-home periods. According to research published on Arxiv, the moment movement slowed, the spread of infection fell dramatically. Fewer people on the streets meant fewer points of contact. The chain of risk broke. Hospitals stabilized. Systems could breathe again. It was proof that small, individual decisions, when multiplied, can alter the course of an entire civilization. Machiavelli, who understood the fragile balance between people and power, would have seen this as a form of collective strategy. When individuals act with discipline, society gains stability. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler adjusts to the times as the river adjusts to the land. When fortune changes, He doesn't fight the flood. He builds dams, channels, and walls. Staying home is one of those channels. It's adaptation in motion. Instead of running into uncertainty, you anchor yourself. You become part of the stabilizing force, not the chaos. You minimize exposure to external risks, disease, unrest, accidents, and in return you gain a quieter, safer world to think and plan in. The collective effect is invisible but powerful. When many choose calm, conflict weakens. When many pause, the world exhales. Machiavelli would call this strategic cooperation, not from compassion, but from necessity. Every individual benefits when the environment is less volatile. Fewer crises outside mean more predictability inside. And predictability is a soil in which power grows. The wise actor does not fight conditions he cannot change. He reads them, adapts, and uses them. So when the world becomes dangerous, the Machiavellian mind does not resist the idea of staying home. It sees an opportunity to conserve energy, gather information, and prepare for the next phase of power. But adaptation isn't passive. It demands awareness. Staying home, for all its advantages, carries its own set of risks. Isolation can creep in quietly, turning peace into emptiness. Without motion, body can weaken. Without human contact, the mind can drift. Studies highlighted by medical news today show that long periods of confinement, especially without structure, can lead to lower mood, disrupted sleep, and reduced physical health. Machiavelli would have understood this perfectly. He knew that power left unattended decays. A fortress without activity becomes a prison. That's why he always advised rulers to stay alert, to act with intention, and to keep their forces trained even during peace. So if home is your principality, it must remain alive. You must govern it with purpose. Create structure. Wake at consistent hours. Plan your day the way a ruler plans the affairs of state. Each task deliberate, each pause meaningful. Engage your mind with study, reflection, and creative work. Keep your body active. Walk, stretch, or train within the limits of your space. Maintain social ties through communication, even if only through a screen or a voice call. Because while Machiavelli prized control, he never valued stagnation. A still mind, he believed, must still think. A confined body must still act. Adaptation is not silence. It is calculated movement within the limits of your environment. Being home doesn't mean the end of growth. It means growth under different rules. When you're forced to operate in smaller boundaries, you learn precision. You learn to do more with less. Machiavelli often spoke of necessity as a teacher, the hard constraint that forces ingenuity. He believed that when men are free to do anything, they become careless, but when circumstances tighten, they sharpen. And isn't that what happens when you stay home? The distractions fall away. The excess vanishes. What's left is necessity, and from necessity comes invention. Think of how many great ideas were born in silence, in solitude, in exile. Machiavelli himself, stripped of power and public life, wrote his masterpiece in isolation. He had no court to influence, no army to command, but he had his mind. His study became his fortress, his imagination his army. He turned stillness into immortality. This is the essence of the Machiavellian lesson. Circumstances do not decide your power, your use of them does. If the world limits your movement, use that limit to think deeper, build skills, and prepare for the moment when the walls open again. Staying home, then, is not just refuge, it's preparation. It's the stage before the strike. When the noise outside settles, the thinking mind gains ground. Every day you spend in reflection, liling or creation, is an investment in the self. Machiavelli compared fortune to a river. It floods, destroys, and changes course without warning. The wise person builds embankments during calm seasons, so that when the flood comes, he stands firm. That's what home time can be, your embankment. While others drift with distraction, you reinforce your foundation. You train your discipline, your patience, your control. You refine your thoughts, define your goals, and study the moves you'll make once opportunity returns. Because when the world reopens, it will reward those who use their quiet time to prepare. Machiavelli's world was full of sudden changes, betrayals, wars, political collapses. The rulers who survived weren't always the most ruthless. They were the most prepared. They waited while others rushed, and when the moment came, they acted decisively. That's what staying home allows you to do. Transform waiting into strategy. The time you spend in silence is not wasted time, it's hidden labor. Every book read, every plan drawn, every idea refined behind closed doors becomes ammunition for the future. The impatient rush into the world while prepared. The strategist waits until his strike guarantees impact. Machiavelli admired that kind of restraint. He saw it as a mark of true intelligence, to know when to act and when to hold. And holding often looks like stillness, but in truth it's control. So while others might see staying home as confinement, you must learn to see it as a lab, a workshop for the self. This is where you build the skills that no one can take away. Critical thinking, focus, emotional balance, self-command. These are the traits that outlast chaos. The moment the external world returns to motion, those who've built these inner qualities will stand stronger, steadier, and smarter. The home becomes the crucible that forges the mind ready for the next storm. And there's another dimension, community. When more people learn to find stability at home, the collective balance of society shifts. Fewer crowds mean fewer conflicts, fewer rushed decisions, fewer crises sparked by impulsive behavior. The pace of the world slows just enough for thought to catch up with action. That balance benefits everyone. It's a Machiavellian paradox. By serving yourself, by preserving your control, you inadvertently serve the larger order. Because order begins within individuals before it extends outward. Of course, no strategy works without awareness. The danger of comfort is complacency. Staying home is powerful only if you remain awake within it. You must remind yourself daily why you are there, not to escape, but to strengthen. That's how Machiavelli would have wanted it, to transform necessity into in tune. When you sit at home reading, learning, reflecting, or simply observing your own patterns, you're doing the same thing he did centuries ago in exile. You're turning quiet into insight. You're studying human nature, starting with your own. So ask yourself, what can you control right now? What skills can you sharpen in this space? What inner strength can you build while the world sleeps? This is where the next chapter of power begins. Not on a battlefield, not in a boardroom, but in a room where silence reigns and focus lives. The walls around you are not limits. They're mirrors showing you what remains when distractions fade. That's where truth begins. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't about manipulation for its own sake. It was about understanding the game of life and playing it consciously. Staying home in this modern world of endless noise is one of the few ways to reclaim that consciousness. It's not passive. It's a deliberate act of control. You choose to slow down while others spiral. You choose depth over speed, clarity over confusion, and through that choice, you quietly rise. So take this time, this silence, and use it as your field of strategy. Look around your space. It's not small, it's focused. It's not empty, it's full of potential. The Machiavellian mind knows that every period of stillness hides a chance for transformation. The wise ruler never wastes his calm seasons. He uses them to prepare for the storm. Now it's your turn. Take this moment, this home, this pause, and ask yourself, what can I control? What can I create? What can I become before the world begins to move again? Because the truth is simple. Staying home is not about waiting for things to change. It's about becoming the kind of person who changes them when the time comes. So, we've come full circle. From Machiavelli's lens, the simple act of staying home transforms into a deliberate act of control, awareness, and strength. You've seen how it offers more than just comfort. It gives you sovereignty over your time, your focus, your mind, and your energy. In a world full of noise, staying home lets you silence the chaos and build something solid within. It protects your health, amplifies your productivity, and shields your mind from distractions that weaken your edge. Machiavelli taught that the wise man never wastes a situation. He uses it. Staying home is not retreat, it's strategy. It's your chance to fortify your inner world while the outer one spins in confusion. Control what you can, improve what you must, prepare for what's coming. That's the essence of power. Because the truth is, if you cannot change the world outside, then change the world inside. Sometimes the best move you can make is the one you make at home. If you found this perspective eye-opening, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Psych Algorithm for more mind-sharpening insights from Machiavelli's world of strategy and human nature. Your transformation starts here, right where you are.